let's wait for a few minutes and then I'll let everyone know once we start. Thank you. So good afternoon again. We're still waiting for more participants, but while waiting, may we request everyone to rename your name in Zoom to your name, open parenthesis, your organization or affiliation, and then followed by a close parenthesis. And my colleague Faye has also sent a Zoom background file, which you can use throughout the whole workshop and later during our group photo. So please let us know if there are problems in downloading the file or the photo via chat. Okay, and then we'll just wait for more participants and our city representatives to join, and then we'll start shortly. Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of the Integrated Program for Better Air Quality in Asia, or the IBAQ Programme's Regional Co-Innovation Workshop. So again, this event is supported by the Ministry of Environment Japan and co-organized by Clean Air Asia and the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies. I am Dana Babella, Senior Researcher of Clean Air Asia, and your host for today. So before we start, I would like to remind everyone that the whole workshop, both video and chat, will be recorded. We also have interpretation channels for Indonesian to English, English to Indonesian, and Filipino to English. So kindly select the appropriate channel using the Zoom function throughout the workshop. We are also requesting our participants to rename their name in Zoom to your name, open parenthesis, office or affiliation, followed by a close parenthesis. So thank you very much for attending the second day of our workshop. So to provide us a recap on what has transpired during the day 1 of the workshop, which was held just this Tuesday, I am handing over the floor to Ms. Precious Benjamin, Clean Air Asia's Capacity Development Officer. So Precious.
Good afternoon, everyone. As mentioned by Dana, I'm here to give the recap of the day 1 of our Regional Co-Innovation Workshop last Tuesday. So firstly, first slide, please. Thank you. Firstly, we contextualize the activity or the workshop within the Integrated Program for Better Air Quality in Asia, with its overall goal of improving air quality and strengthening climate action, resulting to more livable and healthier cities in Asia. And we aim to achieve this goal using technology co-innovation as one of the approaches as the pathway for accelerating emission reductions in our IBAQ cities. Next slide, please. Specifically, our workshop has 3 objectives. So the first is to introduce the concept of co-innovation and how it can help support technology transfer to cities. The second is we wanted our city participants to be able to guide them through step-by-step training in understanding how they can do co-innovation for air quality management and climate mitigation. And lastly, also linked with the second objective. So we are linking the training on co-innovation to strengthening the implementation and ensuring the sustainability of the air quality and climate plans of the cities by helping them develop a funding proposal to address the air quality and climate issues that they have identified. Next slide, please. So in the first session, we learned about the concept of co-innovation as an approach and learning process to meet cities' needs with appropriate technology solutions. To this end, the first step in implementing co-innovation is to gain an understanding of city needs and experiences, specifically in how they address air quality and climate issues. This is then followed by exploring financing and funding mechanisms, establishing partnerships, and securing funding to lower costs of implementing the technology solutions being targeted. Thirdly, this also involves shaping policies and creating an ecosystem that will support the scale-up of the technology solutions. And then lastly, co-innovation involves developing shared intellectual property rights arising from the co-innovation process. So co-innovation addresses the limitations of technology transfer, but by ensuring that the solutions are adaptable, affordable, and scalable. Next slide, please. For the second session, or the session with our cities, so they took center stage, sharing with us their needs and experiences in terms of air quality issues they encountered, and also their priority emission sources, their capacities for managing air quality, and finally, the interventions that they will focus on for the workshop based on all these factors. So for Bogor City, they shared that they would like to expand their air quality monitoring network and are considering the use of non-reference instruments so they can have a more comprehensive picture of their air quality status. And also towards their achievement of city development goals and the implementation of their clear action plan, they are looking at electric vehicles for public and private use. Next, we heard from Pasig City, Philippines, and their experience in managing an electric vehicle government fleet, which is currently being used by health workers for home and community visits and also by government staff for operations. So they have been continuously working with several organizations in improving their capacity and developing infrastructure, and they identified the need to increase their charging stations to service the fleet sufficiently. Then finally, we heard from Quezon City as they shared having commendable strides in terms of consolidating their clean air and climate change mitigation initiatives towards the achievement of their international commitments. So their projects include the establishment of an air quality monitoring network, electric vehicle use for public transportation, the establishment of a network of bike lanes and pedestrian corridors, and as well as of parks and open spaces for active mobility and improved livability. We also saw commonalities among the three cities in terms of recognizing capacity building and stakeholder engagement and partnership building as key in addressing technical and financial issues they encounter. And then similarly, we also saw Kawasaki City as also having similar experiences with the three cities. They shared their experience in scaling electric vehicle use, including having trial or testing programs to promote acceptance of EV use, the importance of engaging actors and stakeholders, as well as the role of private sector. Next slide, please. So with access to financing and the capacity to cover the costs required in the uptake of technology solutions, as identified in the previous city presentations, and by conversations with cities in general as a main barrier to action, we then talked about opportunities for addressing this issue. So a number of financing and funding mechanisms were presented, which included a joint crediting mechanism or JCM, sovereign financing channels, and the facilitation of private sector investments to support supply side of the technology solutions, which are done by agencies such as JICA, government financial institutions, which assist both government and private sector, which an example of which is the Land Bank of the Philippines, and also the importance of technical assistance and grants to address technical needs and jumpstart uptake of solutions, which an example of this is the Asian Clean Blue Skies program of the ADB. Next slide, please, and the final slide. So finally, after all these discussions and inputs, we asked our cities to continue working on their the slides for their intervention. So we had a write shop where they identify the primary technology transfer needs of the city that can be matched with financing mechanisms based on the issues that they have identified in the previous session and the key actors that need to be involved in the project. We also asked them, and they will be presenting this later today, on the specific activities that they need support on for the project, considering research, policy development, training, and stakeholder engagement. So that's it. I hope I gave justice to day one. Thank you very much, Dana.
Thank you, Precious, for providing us a recap of day one. Indeed, there was a lot of learnings gained from sessions 1 to 3 on financing, co-innovation, and the city's experiences and challenges in these aspects. Now, to start the next session on enabling co-innovation, policy, and legal issues, may I call on Dr. Nandakumar Janardanan, Research Manager in the Climate and Energy Division and Regional Coordinator for South Asia at the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, who will serve as the session's moderator. So Nandu, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, colleagues from Clean Air Asia, and let me welcome all the participants, especially the city representatives, as well as other experts who have joined today's workshop. As my colleague from CA already mentioned, this is the second day, and we already have had a recap of the first day discussions and deliberations, and I believe that will help us understand how today's sessions are framed, and we could actually have a fruitful discussion today. So to start with, I want to quickly give you an idea that this session is going to focus on the policies and legal infrastructure, the importance of these two aspects, and how important these aspects in co-innovation. Basically, to facilitate an effective co-innovation, policies and legal frameworks are really important. And because we need a conducive policy environment to encourage collaboration, protect intellectual property rights, and ensure equitable distribution of benefits. So this particular session of this workshop will focus on enabling co-innovation, policy, and legal issues. I understand we will have representatives from 3 different cities, and I can only see the 2 names mentioned here, Pasig and Boga, but I also believe that city officials from Quezon also will be joining. And we have 2 main questions that they will address. First, the question is that how can policies support co-innovation to address technology needs? And what are the legal provisions that can support co-manufacturing advanced technology solutions with overseas partners? So we would like to hear from the city representatives and their experiences and views on these questions. So let me now turn to the city representatives and invite the city colleagues from Pasig to speak for the next 10 minutes. I'm sorry, we can't hear anything if you're speaking. So could you let us know if there is any?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Ratian. Please, the floor is yours.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dorothy Midumawal, one of the focal person of Pasig City for e-mobility project, and this is our presentation. Policies and plans that can support co-innovation. For the Republic Act 11697, or the Electric Vehicle Industry Development Act, or EVIDA, the EVIDA law is also expected to create more opportunities for the local manufacturing of EVs and facilitate the establishment of the necessary infrastructures for EVs in the Philippines. This law is in line with the country's policy to ensure energy security and independence by reducing reliance on imported fuel for transportation sector, provides an enabling environment for development of electric vehicles, promote and support innovation in clean, sustainable and efficient energy. Next, please. National Policy Republic Act, like what I've said, um, under the EVIDA is the comprehensive roadmap for the electric vehicle industry. CREVIS is still in the process. This act defines the national policy framework for the development of the electric vehicles industry and applies to the manufacture, assembly, import, introduction, maintenance, utilization, and research and development of EV charging stations, component batteries, and EV-related infrastructures. For the future policy, ordinance still in the process, Electric Mobility Ordinance of Pasig City has declared in its policy that it supports sustainable transport and urban planning through the encouragement of less polluting and less congested modes of transportation or transport. Pasig City seeks to develop its transport policies based on the National Transport Policy promulgated by the National Economic and Development Authority Board, which endorses the promotion of clean energy through electric vehicles and recognizes the capability of light electric vehicles to promote mobility, particularly for persons with disabilities and the elderly. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Dumawal, for those highlighting those legal provisions and policy infrastructure from Pasig City. Now, let me move to the next speaker from Bogo City.
Perkenalkan, nama saya Ridwan Adityansyah dari Kota Bogor. Saya akan memaparkan untuk presentasi terkait dengan policy and plans that can support co-innovation. Untuk sebelumnya, mohon maaf, saya akan menjelaskan dalam bahasa Indonesia. Ya, next, please. Oke. Di Indonesia sendiri, kami untuk di daerah memiliki rencana kerja 5 tahunan, yaitu kami sebut dengan Renstra 5 tahunan. Nah, di Kota Bogor memiliki Renstra berjangka waktu 5 tahun, serta kami juga memiliki rencana aksi udara bersih pada tahun 2019, yang intinya untuk menekankan perlunya peningkatan penggunaan kendaraan ramah lingkungan. Di kami sendiri, kami sudah memulai dari pihak pemerintahan kota untuk mencanangkan penggunaan kendaraan listrik, yaitu salah satunya dengan pimpinan kami di sini sudah mengkonversikan kendaraannya sekarang menggunakan kendaraan listrik, beserta kami juga di sekitar daerah Balai Kota sudah menyediakan stasiun charging-nya. Hal ini berguna untuk penyempurnaan tata kota juga. Terus juga kami juga mengembangkan ruang terbuka hijau untuk menjaga kualitas lingkungan, sekaligus meningkatkan perekonomian juga. Untuk mendukung inovasi bersama dan memenuhi kebutuhan teknologi, kebijakan dapat memberikan insentif dan sumber daya untuk kolaborasi antar pemangku kepentingan seperti bisnis, peneliti, entitas pemerintahan, kemudian juga dari pihak institusi pendidikan. Ini juga dapat melibatkan pendanaan insentif terkait penelitian dan pengembangan, memfasilitasi kemitraan antar organisasi lokal dan internasional, dan memberi dukungan untuk transfer teknologi dan komersialisasi. Kerangka hukum yang mempromosikan kolaborasi nasional dan internasional mungkin menjadi pertimbangan pentingnya inovasi untuk bersama. Kota Bogor mungkin perlu mempelajari ketentuan hukum dan memastikan bahwa ketentuan tersebut ada untuk mendukung inisiatif dengan para mitra. Mungkin sekian dari Kota Bogor. Terima kasih.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ridwan, for highlighting those policy and legal environment in the country. And I also want to thank Ms. Dumbal for mentioning the legal frameworks which is available in the past 6 years. Now, as planned as part of this discussion, now we will move to the next speaker, who is a resource person for today. And this is Mr. Tim Day. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly, from the TD Environmental Services. He's actually going to provide feedback on the city presentations, highlighting the opportunities for participating cities to advance partnership for co-innovation of technological solutions for clean air and climate actions. Over to you, Tim Day.
Hello, my name is Tim Dye, and I'm from TD Environmental Services, and it's a pleasure to be a part of this conference and to provide some feedback on both the presentations and some thoughts on co-innovation and co-creation, and how I really think it's the future. So, as I looked through the talks and thought more about it, there's some thoughts and examples that I'd like to share. Some thoughts that I have is, in a lot of our work with city government, and certainly in some of the presentations, city government can't do it all. Help is needed. that help can come from a variety of different ways and forms. But it's really time for a new collaborative, a new innovative, a new co-creative model, if you will. I think there are a lot of benefits for governmental agencies with this new model. There's value in citizen and community involvement when citizens and community members can be more involved in governmental decisions. This helps create local champions and advocates for new policies, new regulations, new rules, etc. I think at the same time, government can really learn from the local and lived experience from their citizenry. This creates a greater trust between government agencies, other organizations, and community members. It produces better insights into the problems. Many of these problems are complex, are local, and somewhat hyperlocal, and this provides opportunities to address those. And lastly, and importantly, I think this can be a more cost-effective approach of co-creation, co-innovation. And I'd like to share with you a couple of projects that we've been working on the last couple of years and share with you how co-creation and co-innovation is really helping there. The first project is in India, and this is funded by USAID, Building Healthy Cities project. And similar to one of the presenters talking about the number of automatic or continuous monitors maybe not being enough in a particular city, Indoor India at that time only had one continuous reference monitor. They now actually have more, but during that time they only had one. So the study was really twofold. One is to deploy some low-cost air sensors and to engage and create greater community awareness. And the way that we did this was to deploy 20 PM2.5 sensors, which you can see there in the picture on the right. And we did a co-creation process and co-innovation process with community members. And there were clean air guides that were hired to maintain the sensors and to, more importantly, engage with the community. And you can see the clean air guides there on the right being trained on the air sensor technology. Now, one of the interesting things is when we look at the data and the AQI maps on the left, they tell us very different air quality conditions based on certain neighborhoods are cleaner, other neighborhoods are much more dirty. But there's also other ways. There's color-coded charts that the Clean Air Guides created to tell a more local story when they engaged with community members and to talk about air pollution and raise greater awareness. So it's not just about the data, but it's also about the people. Interestingly enough, this was probably one of the best projects that I've worked on in the last decade. It was also the one that I think accomplished the most, and it's one that cost the least for what we did. And I think a lot of that was a result of the purposeful study design from the beginning to think about co-innovation, co-creation with community members to have them do a lot of the work and participate actively in the project. In the other example, I'd like to talk about the United States Environmental Protection Agency and how they are using citizen data to address a real need. The challenge is wildfire smoke that affects not only where I live in the United States, but also many other regions, throughout Asia and other parts of the world. This wildfire smoke is increasing in frequency. People want local information, and there are lots of different sources out there. And sometimes that can lead to conflicting information, public confusion. So the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency sought to co-innovate. And what they decided to do was to blend and combine both air sensor data, shown in the lower right there as a citizen that runs an air sensor, combine that with reference stations and fill in some of the gaps. So let me show you what this looks like. In this particular case, we're looking at San Francisco, California area, shown by the blue diamond there in the western portion of the United States. This is a region of maybe about 100 by 100 kilometers, something like that. These are the official reference stations, and you can see there's not reference stations everywhere. There can't be. They're too expensive. And so what EPA decided is that there are low-cost sensors out there that measure PM2.5 and smoke, and there are lots of them. And so they've undertaken an effort to create a public product that integrates the reference data shown here with the low-cost sensors. And this is the resulting map showing that. I've circled the 3 reference stations here, and you can see the low-cost sensors are added in as squares, and you can see there's lots of them, and currently there are 4,000 or 5,000 of these located over this particular region right now. More importantly, you can see a fire up there shown by the triangle and the little fire symbol. It created smoke and created particulate matter that was not detected by the monitors, by the reference stations, but it was detected by the low-cost sensors. And so by combining this information, kind of co-innovating and creating and engaging and using citizen data, the US EPA is creating a product that is more comprehensive, more valuable, more collaborative with and meeting a real need to identify where the smoke is on a particular day, a particular hour. So with that, I think there are tremendous opportunities here for working with a broader audience and collaborating and co-innovating and combining different data sets collected by different people and organizations. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and participation. I missed the good times working with Clean Air Asia and the Better Air Quality Conference, and look forward to returning to Asia to see friends and many colleagues. You can reach me at tim@tdenviro.com. If you would like to access more details about these studies, there's a tiny URL there for the study in India, and you can look at the EPA's fire and smoke map at fire.airnow.gov. With that, thank you and appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for that presentation and showing us those examples on some of the real work that is happening based on co-innovation in India. And I'm sure these are, similar examples are happening in different places. Even at IGES, we have been undertaking co-innovation based research, and we also have conducted extensive case studies on co-innovation based work, where Japan is collaboratively working with Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, and many other countries from this region. And how these two countries, this collaboration have led to better output in terms of the machinery or equipment. It also shows how Japan and the partner country were able to contribute to the socio-economic co-benefits in terms of employment generation, in terms of income for local economies. So there have been multiple benefits have actually been noticed in some of the case studies. At the same time, I just want to actually give you a bit more idea that what are the specific advantages of co-innovation. First of all, when we talk about co-innovation, it is to actually access a new technology, and it is to have a solution to one existing problem from diverse perspectives. Probably the way Japan looks at a solution will be definitely different from what the way maybe Indonesia looks at it or Philippines looks at it. So when partners from these countries work together to fine-tune a technology, they will be able to bring in multiple perspectives and multiple kind of knowledge to fine-tune the technology. And by co-innovation, we also expect partners or the partner institutions and companies or collaborating bodies to share resources and also risk. Sometimes imagine that an air pollution monitoring equipment which is indigenously developed in maybe one of the countries may have some technical difficulties, or so that kind of risk can be addressed by collaborating with an external partner. And this is something which co-innovation can help. And by doing this, co-innovation will also lead to greater impact and on the spread of that equipment or machinery, and also can be effective, can be more effective in terms of meeting the sustainability goals. So there's multiple stakeholders who are involved in innovation process to develop a fine-tuner technology will be able to, will have in their view, will have priorities of different set of customers, of different set of end users. So there'll be a greater impact, there'll be a greater impact in terms of sustainability and all. And the entire process of collaboratively developing a technology will also bring in a lot of trust and transparency among the beneficiaries or among the collaborative partners. And at the same time, some of the issues which the purpose of this entire workshop, this particular session itself, is to understand the importance of intellectual property rights or the legal issues and the need for conducive policy environment. And as for intellectual property rights, as many of you know, often intellectual property rights is something which adversely affect scaling up of technologies. As we discussed day before yesterday, whenever we get a technology or advanced technology based equipment from another country, it comes with a set of legal restrictions in terms of scaling up. But co-innovation will help us to address those legal restrictions and make a sort of jointly agreeable intellectual property framework which permits the user, the end user also to scale up the technology. So intellectual property rights, addressing intellectual property rights and the restrictions within that is one of the biggest concerns. And that's why we are actually today discussing about the legal aspects as well. And the former speaker from Pasig City has mentioned about the Republic Act 11697. And so similar legal instruments, how these acts and policies are able to help jointly working, basically collaborating to develop technology and collaboratively shape new intellectual property regimes. These are extremely important. And sometimes other challenges for joint development of technologies, like sometimes managing risk in terms of collaborating organizations will have to keep in mind that there is a risk in sometimes when you depend only on technologies solely developed for a particular geography. So I think co-innovation will also be able to address this risk aspect as well. And overall, co-innovation basically requires a strong commitment from all partners, and that way it can lead to a long-term benefits for both developed country as well as the developing partner. In this case, we are looking at the cities and the supplier countries. Both will have advantages because new technology will be coming, which will also have socio-economic benefits. So So in that way, the presentation Tim has made is sort of highlighting some of the real examples that happened in India and how his team has actually worked on some of this co-innovation, technology co-innovation. Let me stop here for now, and let me see if some of our other participants would like to come in. Let me see whether the city participants would like to share any views or any quick responses to Tim's presentation or any additional views. Over to the members of cities, Ms. Dimawal and Mr. Ridwan. If you have any additional comments or suggestions, please feel free to share with us. Okay, I do not see any suggestions or comments. So let me see if my colleagues, maybe Eric Sussman. Eric, would you like to add some points to what Tim has presented or the overall discussion which is happening in this session?
Yeah, thanks, Nandu. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I think this is very useful discussion, and I think we've done a nice job of highlighting some of the opportunities for changing or using policies to promote the co-innovation and also the institutional changes that can promote co-innovation. I want to highlight a few points which I think we'll talk about a little bit more in the next session too, but which came up especially from our discussions with colleagues in Bogor. And the first one is, I think it's important to underline there's sometimes a difference between the policies and the institutional arrangement. I think we heard a lot about the institutional arrangement also the previous day. But I think institutional arrangement is very important for promoting co-innovation. And I think we'll hear this more in the next session too, but especially the mechanisms that are going to help support a coordination between, for instance, environmental agency, transportation agency, and also development planning agency. So we need to really have some good coordination across those different agencies horizontally. And I think that will be very important for supporting the scaling up of the technology and the communication around those technologies. So that's one piece I think institutionally we need to focus on. The second piece is more of a vertical piece. And this I think is especially important for the intellectual property right issue. So when you bring the technology over, there might be questions you have about, is this supported by national laws? And so you might have to have some communication with the national legal institutions or the parliament. So having good coordination and communication up and down will also be really important to support this process of co-innovation. So you need it both across the agencies and at different levels. And I think that will be, important for supporting and facilitating the transfer and the growth of that technology. So those are 2 points on the institutions. And then the last point, which was implied in also Tim's presentation, and I think you've heard from Tetsuro Yoshida and from Nandu and others, is it's not just important to work within the government, but also to have some mechanisms for engaging with the private sector and the public. And I think what we're seeing happening in many countries these days is those mechanisms are getting stronger. So how do we work with, for instance, the manufacturer or of the different types of technologies within the country? And how do we engage with the private sector to know what's happening? That's going to be very, very important. And similarly, how do we engage with the public? So one of the things we talked about in the case of Bogor is, air quality monitoring sensors. We might need to think about where we're going to put the sensors, how we're going to use them. So should we have some type of, forum for consulting on this and, technology, or can we use existing forum to do that? So, vertically within government, as between different levels, horizontally within the city, and then some engagement with the private sector, with public, and then also with the universities, I think is going to be very important, research institutes. So those types of institutional arrangements, I think, are going to be really important in terms of supporting this process. And I think it's not only good for co-innovation, but also for your climate change and air pollution planning more generally. So those types of mechanisms, I think, are really essential to making things work. Those are some of the points I wanted to highlight. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Eric, for adding these points. And let me also see if there are any other members of this team or this group representing other cities would like to share any views. Basically, the floor is open, so please feel free to raise your hand and share your views. Okay, so looks like not many are there. Let me just add one last point before handing over the session back to my colleagues at CAA, that one of the most important reasons why we discuss about this policy and conducive policy environment and legal framework is that for co-innovation or to jointly innovate, jointly fine-tune technologies or jointly develop technologies, we need to understand that this is not a short-term, one-time transfer of technology, but a transfer of technology that also facilitate long-term economic and social co-benefits for the receiving country. So to have that, we have to actually envision of an ecosystem related to that technology, which we discussed briefly day before yesterday, an ecosystem that supports the technology in terms of spare parts, in terms of engineering expertise and repairing expertise, in terms of marketing or sale, or sort of facilities. So how a technology installation can give maximum benefit to the recipient country, and how a technology can be modified and scaled up or replicated, that will depend on to what extent an ecosystem is developed within the recipient country to take this technology forward. And that is what we aim through this entire exercise of this workshop and working with the cities for developing the financial proposals for this entire exercise. Now we have our session is sort of time for the session is already over, and I'll hand this over to my colleague from CAA, Dana. And once again, thank you so much for all the participants and speakers for joining this workshop. Dana, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nandu. So the previous session has provided us a deeper understanding of the city's policies and plans that enable and support co-innovation and funding of their selected technological solutions for clean air and climate actions. So in the next and final session of the workshop, the updated city presentations will be shared and invited experts will be asked to provide feedback to strengthen the presentations. So calling on Ms. Precious Benjamin again, who will serve as the session's moderator. So Precious, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dana, and good afternoon again, everyone. So we will now be hearing from our three cities who will be sharing their presentations as they have updated their sections on the needs, the funding, policy and legal issues, the policy and legal issues relating to their identified technology needs as informed by the learning on the previous sessions of the workshop. So for this session, aside from Pasig City and also from Bogor City, they will be joined by Quezon City also as the third city from the Philippines. So first up, may I first call on Ms. Dorothy Dumawal from the Pasig City Transportation Development and Management Office. Ms. Vance, the floor is yours.
Hi, good afternoon again, everyone. Yan. Pasig City, Philippines. Identify primary technology transfer need of the city. E-mobility charging stations. So, as you can see, dito nyo po makikita yung sa Mega Parking 2. Sa Mega Parking 2, dito nyo po makikita yung 4 charging pads po namin. Funded by Solutions Plus. Battery swapping for the lead acid battery. So, ito po, isa sa mga kailangan ng Pasig City dahil po meron po kaming electric vehicles na lead acid. For the infrastructure to support expansions of e-vehicles in the city, so kailangan din po namin ito ngayon. Next slide, please. Who are the key actors who should be involved in the project initiative? Executive Order Number PCO 63 Series of 2021, the steering committee shall be composed of different officials of the city that will plan, guide, and oversee the implementation and sustainability as well as monitor the different e-mobility initiatives in Pasig City. Pasig Steering Committee, led by City Transportation Development and Management Office, ito po yung office po namin, City Environment and Natural Resources Office. Kasama rin po natin yung City Health Office na sineservice po natin ang mga health workers. Supporting departments, City Planning and Development Office, City Engineering Office, Office of the General Services, Tricycle Operator and Regulatory Office, City Council Secretariat, Barangay Affairs Office, and Office of the Mayor. Other partners, kasama din po natin dito si UNDP and Solutions Plus. Next, please. Nagkaroon po kami ng feasibility study on charging station. Dito po sa Mega Parking 2, kung makikita nyo yung pulang line po na yan po yung mga dumadaan po sa atin dito na mga EVs. Mas marami pang electric vehicles na dumadaan dito po sa Mega Parking. Kaysa po sa yung e-tricycles, electric vehicles, yun po yung color yellow. Then, yung mga e-bikes po, ito po yung mga private users. Mas marami po sila. Next, please. Then, sa East Bank Road, nagkaroon din po kami ng survey dito sa area po na to. So, makikita nyo din po dito ang mga e-bikes, mas marami pong dumadaan, electric vehicles, kaya po sa mga scooters. And ito po yung sa charging time namin. Dito nyo po makikita kung yung charging station namin from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m., mas marami po ang mga electric vehicles. Then, view of interior walkways. Sa ngayon po, ganito po yung makikita natin sa Mega Parking 2. Then, our future plan for charging station. So, ito po. Then, next. Nagkaroon din po kami ng survey questions para po sa mga gumagamit ng electric vehicles na kung paano nakatulong sa kanila ang free charging station ng Pasig. Then, key factors for site selections, locational accessibility, availability, good solar irradiance. and associated costs, permits, license, and energy costs. Ito po yung target location natin for the additional charging station. Isa rin po dito ang Barangay Santa Lucia, Barangay San Nicolas, Pinagbuhatan, and Rave of Pasig. Kasama na rin po dito ang PhilPost. Policy development, tulad ng sinabi ko kanina, Republic Act 11697 or EVIDA, Electric Vehicle Industry Development Act. Under the EVIDA is the comprehensive roadmap for the electric vehicle industry. CREVI is still in the process. Our future policy ordinance is still in the process, Electric Mobility Ordinance of Pasig City. Next, please. Training. Who needs to be trained? End users, lahat ng mga end users ng mga electric vehicles, kailangan po natin silang i-train. And then for the repair and maintenance team, kailangan din po natin silang i-train. What type of training? Management technical, basic repair, training for the end user, and troubleshooting for the maintenance team. So kailangan din po nating mag-add ng manpower para at least mas ma-establish at ma-sustain natin ang e-mobility project. Stakeholders engagement. Who are the stakeholders that your city is engaging with for the project? Local government unit offices who use e-trike. Local government offices who handle maintenance and security charging station. General public with e-vehicles. Development and funding agencies. Kasama din po natin dito si NDP, Solutions Plus, and Department of Energy. E-vehicle end users, tricycle operators, and drivers association. Ang gumagamit din po sa amin ng mga electric vehicles, meron po tayong homeowners association, public schools, Pasig Health Aid Center, and senior citizen. Thank you. Yun lang po.
Very much, Ms. Vance. So also to add, in the presentations of our cities for this session, aside from refining the previous presentations that they have shared during day 2 or day 1 rather, and identifying the technology need that they now will undertake. So they have mapped, as shown in Ms. Van's presentation, the actors and also the specific activities that they need support on, considering research, policy development, training, and stakeholder engagement. So for our next presenter, I would now like to call on Ms. Diane Martinez from the Quezon City Green Transport Office under the Department of Public Order and Safety. Ms. Diane.
Hello po, good afternoon. So I'm Ms. Diane Martinez po from the Department of Public Order and Safety, Green Transport Division. And today I will be discussing about the output of Quezon City on the Regional Technology Co-Innovation Workshop.
Ms. Diane, please feel free to...
Yes po? Yes? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hi, Ms. Diane. Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Again, I'm Ms. Anne-Marie Diane B. Martinez from the Department of Public Order and Safety, Green Transport Division. And I will be facilitating or discussing about the outputs of Quezon City on the Regional Technology Co-Innovation Workshop.
Ms. Diane, apologies for interrupting. We can hear an echo. If you have colleagues also in the room, if they can mute maybe their laptop so we can hear you clearly.
Okay, noted.
Thank you.
Okay na ba, ma'am?
I think, can you please try speaking again, Ms. Diane?
Hello, good afternoon.
We can hear still some echo. If you can maybe do a last final check.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, this is better. I think yes, please go ahead with your presentation.
Okay, so this is the output of Quezon City on the Regional Technology Co-Innovation Workshop. So primarily, the main goal of Quezon City is to phase out the two-stroke tricycles by 2025. So tricycles with franchises in Quezon City totaling of 25,000 is considered a primary mode of transport in many areas in Quezon City. Servicing secondary roads and subdivisions, currently the city has a total of 8,000. So about 36% of two-stroke tricycles with franchise. So which affect the air quality in the city due to its high emissions of toxic pollutants. Another goal of Quezon City is the more modernization from conventional to electric vehicles to 30% by year 2020. So currently, we have distributed 279 kit rides to recipients of TODAS in Quezon City. So due to inadequacy of maintenance and charging stations, it is proposed to have more charging stations infrastructure in order to encourage more people to use electric vehicles and to prevent the delay of charge that can disrupt the operation and cause revenue loss to drivers. So it will increase the operation time up to 3 times and income to the drivers or beneficiaries up to 2 times of the end users or e-trike drivers. So that our primary technology transfer need will be about the electric mobility, the charging station infrastructure, or solar charging station. Currently, we have 5 available charging stations, but still processing additional stations to cater more electric tricycles. The locations are 2 at Payatas, 1 at Amoranto, 1 at Batasan Hills, Toda, and another one at City Hall in front of the PUS building. Next slide, please. So who are the key actors who should be involved in the project or initiative? Currently, we have Ordinance number SP2447, series of 2015, which is an ordinance creating the Quezon City Green Transport Office under the Department of Public Order and Safety, defining its duties, functions, and responsibilities, providing on its composition, appropriating the necessary funds thereof, and for and other purposes. So that's the title of our Ordinance number SP2447, series of 2015. So the lead department will be BPOS, Green Transport Division, since it is responsible in planning and conducting monitoring on the utilization of clean fuel technology and advocate the use of a viable green alternative technologies such as e-bikes or e-vehicles. And also, one of the main functions then under this ordinance of the Green Transport Division is to develop informative and educational knowledge and awareness on how motor vehicles emissions contribute to ecological imbalance and encourage all owners of diesel-fed vehicles, whether public or public, to convert to clean air technology options. And another functions of the green transport is also to identify and select locations for the establishment of charging stations to be strategically positioned for convenience to the beneficiaries and ready access of green transport users. So the supporting departments that we have identified are the following. We have the Climate Change and Environmental Sustainability Department. So they will assist the DPOS, GTD in the identification and selection of location for the establishment of the charging stations. TTMD, particularly the Tricycle Regulatory Division, they will encourage the conversion and shifting of conventional tricycles to electric tricycles, and also they will assist us in the identification and selection of location for the establishment of charging station. The Quezon City, another one that we have identified as supporting department is the Tricycle Franchising Board. So they will promote and encourage conversion of two-stroke tricycles with franchise to electric tricycles through the formulation of some incentives, plans, for example, free charging stations, free charging of the electric vehicles, or if they have incentive programs or plans. Another one is supporting from the academe. We have the University of the Philippines, Diliman, particularly UP-NCTS and UP Electrical and Electronics Engineering Institute. So they will assist us in the development of a methodology in optimal placement of charging stations in a local public transportation network. They will also help us in determining the techno-economic viability of fast chargers and social electric vehicles charging stations. And of course, Meralco, as the supporting department, they can be a possible sponsor to electric charging stations, infrastructure installation, or they will provide additional electrical supply that may be needed depending on the type of charger to be deployed or installed. Next slide, please. So the research needs that we have identified, what are the research questions that needs to answer about the technology? We have identified 7. So first, we have the EV fleet. So we need to determine what are we targeting to the service. So usually, here in Quezon City, we are targeting the commuters, the TODAs, not TODA, TODAs, not TODAs. And also, we need to know the EV specifications first before installing charging stations. Of course, what are the different charging requirements, expected charging time, how many are expected to use the station, is it for publicly accessible or for a private fleet? So we need to know that. That are the research questions. Another one is the route and ridership characteristics. How many commuters of the specific location, TODA groups or locations in the cities. For example, LC TODA, DIPA TODA, Payatas, and Parkwoods. Another is the electric vehicles volume. So how many uses e-scooters, e-bikes, electric bicycles, and others. Another one is charger specifications. So we need to know if how many input voltage, the rated power, output current, output voltage, average charging time of the e-vehicles. Another one is solar charging station. So how many kilowatts per hour? What is the battery storage system that will be used for the solar charging station? So those are the things that we need to be answered answered about the technology. Next is the local government units input. So the input of the Green Transport Division, example, the green routes, local public transport route plan, if there is, and parking ordinances. And the available locations evaluation. Is the charging stations to be installed? Is it near on the residential area or within the protected landmark location? Like for example, La Mesa Water Dam. Another Do we have access to sufficient electrical supply for the target charging capacity? Is the area prone to flooding? Does it have an existing infrastructure for the equipment? For example, canopy, roofing for the solar PV panels. Can the area hold at least 2 parking slots for the target fleet to be serviced? So those are the questions that needs to be answered about the technology. Next slide, please. So these are the policy development of Quezon City that we have identified. We have existing policies, of course, the national policies, which is the RA 11697, or EVIDA law, which is the Electric Vehicle Industry Development Act, and CREVI, which is the Comprehensive Roadmap for Electric Vehicle Industry. Another ordinance is the local ordinance of the city, which is Ordinance SP 2447, series of 2015, that I've mentioned earlier. It is an ordinance creating the Quezon City Green Transport Office under the Department of Public Order and Safety. So defining its duties, functions, and responsibilities, providing its composition, appropriating the necessary funds thereof, and for other purposes. And another ordinance that supports electric vehicles is the ordinance number ST2490 series of 2016, which is an ordinance for the installation of electric vehicle charging and power bank station at the Quezon City Hall compound, the energy source from alternative sources of energy such as but not limited to solar energy. And lastly, our future policy, we are on the process for evaluation for an ordinance for the regulation of electric vehicles in the city, in Quezon City. Next slide, please. So the training that needs to be done, and first who needs to be trained, of course, the e-trike beneficiaries, the TODA or the Tricycle Operators and Drivers Association. What type of training? Both management and technical training. So these are the list of trainings that we have identified. First is repair and maintenance training and seminars about the electric vehicles. Next, mandatory seminars to various TODAs that tackle the associated financial aspects regarding e-trikes. Next is the driver's training on the use of electric vehicles and training on the proper handling of charging stations in order to sustain electric vehicles in the city. Then of course, manpower resources. Next po. So stakeholders engagement. Who are the stakeholders that your city is engaging for the project? First is the UP NCTS and UP Electrical and Electronics Engineering Institute at Meralco. Development and or funding agencies that we have identified is Land Bank, since they lend money for the those who want to use electric vehicles. Next is existing partners. We have the DOST, DOE, and UP Diliman. Different groups and communities. We have the TODA, JODAS, and commuters. Companies for the technology, the UP Electric Mobility R&D Group, CHRG, Electric Vehicle Technologies Incorporation. Next slide, please. So that's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Diane. So finally, may I now request Ms. Puji Astuti from the Bogor City Environmental Agency to take the floor.
Halo, selamat siang. Suara saya sudah terdengar ya? Perkenalkan, nama saya Puji Astuti. Ya, Puji Astuti dari Dinas Lingkungan Hidup Kota Bogor. Saya akan menyampaikan dalam bahasa Indonesia. Slide berikutnya. Kondisi existing saat ini kami sudah mempunyai alat monitoring otomatis yang merupakan bantuan dari pemerintah Republik Indonesia yang memonitor kondisi kualitas udara setiap hari secara otomatis. Alat ini tidak mobile ya, jadi membutuhkan space tertentu dan syarat tertentu untuk penempatannya. Pemantauannya cukup akurat berdasarkan beberapa parameter dan setiap hari selalu update. Pemantauan udara secara otomatis ini sangat dibutuhkan oleh kami karena beberapa wilayah mempunyai kondisi yang berbeda tergantung dari kondisi transportasinya. Karena kami bukan kota industri, merupakan kota jasa, maka sumber utama emisi atau polusi udara adalah berasal dari kendaraan bermotor. Untuk saat ini selain memonitor melalui alat monitor otomatis, kami juga melakukan pemantauan secara manual setahun 2 kali melalui analisa di laboratorium. Bisa slide berikutnya. Oh ya, tadi terkait slide pertama, selain kami mempunyai alat monitor yang merupakan bantuan, kami juga membutuhkan alat monitor otomatis yang lebih mobile dan lebih sederhana, dan kebutuhan pemantauan secara otomatis masih kita butuhkan di lokasi-lokasi yang lain. Dan untuk kegiatan peningkatan pemantauan udara dengan mengadakan atau menambah alat EQM ini dalam secara organisasi melibatkan beberapa unit kerja di kota kami. Unit kerja utama yang sebagai leader terutama adalah di dinas kami, Dinas Lingkungan Hidup Kota Bogor, dan kegiatan ini juga akan disupport oleh Dinas Perhubungan dan Dinas Kesehatan, dan tentu saja dikoordinir oleh Bapeda sebagai arranger dari kegiatan dan kelak nanti dalam keuangannya. Selain itu juga kita dapat bekerja sama atau membutuhkan juga kerjasama dari universitas yang ada di kota kami maupun yang ada di kota lain. Kemudian juga dibutuhkan koordinasi dengan private sector. Kemudian juga sekolah-sekolah lain yang berkaitan dengan pemantauan kualitas udara di kota kami. Slide berikutnya. Ini kami sampaikan kondisi saat ini. Di dalam gambar adalah kondisi penggambaran EQMS yang existing kami miliki. Itu bentuknya sangat besar. Dia membutuhkan space sebesar 4 kali 5 meter persegi dan di dalamnya terdapat banyak perangkat. Oleh karena itu, untuk mendukung pemantauan di lokasi lain, kami membutuhkan EQM yang lebih mobile dan lebih mudah dioperasikan, yang akan dioperasikan di 6 subdistrik di Kota Bogor. Tipe sensor EQM yang kami butuhkan untuk secara mobile ini minimal mempunyai 2 parameter yang bisa dimonitor, yaitu SO2 dan NO2. Lanjut. untuk specific activity itu
Miss
kebijakan yang
Fuji,
ada, kami nomor 1 tahun 2014 yang tentang ya, bisa jelaskan? Untuk kondisi kebijakan saat ini kami sudah mempunyai peraturan perlindungan dan pengelolaan lingkungan hidup. Dan kebijakan lain yang akan segera diresmikan adalah mengenai peraturan transportasi yang mempunyai target dalam transportasi yang lebih efisien dan lebih berkelanjutan dengan menggunakan tenaga yang lebih bersih, terutama energi listrik. Dan dari kegiatan ini diharapkan dapat mendukung kebijakan lain, terutama di bidang transportasi, misalnya dalam mengatur rute angkutan publik, karena di kota kami sangat diperlukan untuk pengaturan lalu lintas ini ya. Kemudian juga dibutuhkan SOP untuk pemantauan dengan EQM ini. Dan dari SOP ini diharapkan nanti kita dapat mendorong struktur organisasi, karena untuk pelaksanaan atau pengujian menggunakan EQM ini tentu membutuhkan personal, regulasi, kemudian juga nanti dana untuk operasional, maintenance dari alat tersebut. Dan tentu saja dibutuhkan personal atau staf yang mempunyai kapasitas yang memenuhi untuk dapat mengoperasikan dan memaintain dari alat tersebut. Next. Kemudian dari EM ini tentu saja staf atau personal nanti yang akan melaksanakan pemantauan atau mengoperasikan dan memelihara membutuhkan training tertentu, baik dalam pengoperasian, pemeliharaan, kemudian mengevaluasi hasil dan juga membuat laporan terkait dengan EQM yang dioperasikan. Supporting agensi yang akan terlibat adalah Bapeda terkait dengan budgeting, manajemen dan monitoring target. Kemudian juga Dinas Transportasi yang akan menerima manfaat dari hasil monitoring dan evaluasi dari EQM tersebut. Dan tentu saja Dinas Lingkungan Hidup sebagai leading sector dalam pemantauan kualitas udara. Kemudian juga pelatihan setelah after sale service juga dibutuhkan, karena tentu saja alat tersebut membutuhkan pemeliharaan, karena tentu dalam penggunaan jangka panjang kondisi alat harus dipelihara dengan baik supaya dapat digunakan secara berkelanjutan dan dalam waktu lama. Jadi kami tidak ingin alat nanti kalau misalnya ada alat yang dihibahkan tidak terbengkalai dalam 1 atau 2 tahun, jika ada kerusakan kemudian tidak dapat dimanfaatkan kembali. Bisa lanjut? Ini masih specific activity to be started. Di dalam kegiatan ini seperti sudah diuraikan, ini kami gambarkan dalam diagram bahwa stakeholder yang terkait adalah dinas-dinas di lingkungan Kota Bogor, Dinas Lingkungan Hidup, Dinas Perhubungan, dan juga Bapeda sebagai leading sector, koordinator untuk monitoring target dan keuangan. Kemudian juga kami melibatkan grup-grup komunitas yang mungkin dapat memperoleh manfaat dari adanya IKM mobile ini. Kemudian juga kita membutuhkan dukungan dari penyedia manufacturing atau teknologi company, kemudian juga laboratorium yang juga nanti dapat mendukung aktivitas kami dalam pemantauan kualitas udara. Lanjut. Saya rasa cukup sekian dari kami. Mudah-mudahan dapat menjelaskan dengan baik apa yang diinginkan dalam proposal. Terima kasih. Kami kembalikan ke panitia. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fuji. So I think, thank you very much to our 3% city presenters. They have, well, the 3 cities have done excellent work in terms of mapping out the stakeholders and actors and their roles, and also in sharing the different activities that are related to the technology uptake, both in terms of what is existing, what has been done, and also what still needs to be done and the help that they need. So now, based from these presentations, for the second part, I will now be inviting invited speakers to provide their input on how we can strengthen the presentations of our 3 city participants, and also your recommendations on as they continue working and using the information that they have presented in the presentation and converting these into funding proposals, any suggestions or recommendations for doing so. So I would like to first introduce our 3 speakers. Firstly, Ms. Mary Jane Alvarez. Ms. Mary Jane is the Regional Program Manager of ICLEI Southeast Asia. Her role involves developing, strategizing, and overseeing the implementation of programs under their Southeast Asia portfolio, providing technical advice and guidance in the design and delivery of project activities. Also present is Dr. Takuro Kobashi, an associate professor at Tohoku University, Sendai in Japan. As part of Dr. Kobashi's work, he conducts research on urban decarbonization, focusing on the use of rooftop PV integrated with electric vehicles as battery. And lastly, we also have Dr. Eric Zusman, who is the research director at the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, with extensive experience on policy and research on environment, climate change, and governance issues here in Asia. So first up, may I now invite Ms. Mary Jane to take the floor, and if you can share your feedback for each of the presentations of the 3 cities.
Thank you, Precious. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your the detailed presentation of our local government technical officers that have presented today. Well, I'd like to, first apologies because I was having a technical glitch when the Pasig City representative is presenting their proposal. So I think, but I have received already the presentation, the PowerPoint. So the first question when I was reading the presentation was, what is the overall goal of the Pasig City government when they are proposing this project? What is their direct outcome level goal that they want to address? Do they want, are they proposing the use of electric vehicle to change the vehicle fleet of the local government unit, or do they want to infuse the use of electric vehicle even at the private sector for the whole municipality? So I think that would be the basic question that a project evaluator would ask the proponent. And I agree with the research questions that was presented by the Quezon City representatives, because basically those are the information needed to establish the feasibility of the project proposal. Like by answering those questions, you will be strengthening the justification that you need this project, and that you are providing a more the nitty-gritty of the technology that you would wanted. But just in addition, if I may suggest, the two local governments may also want to have a discussion with their electric utility, so they would know if the local government would have the necessary electric supply when they transition to this kind of vehicle, because you have to understand the impacts of charging stations on the current power supply. They need to review the potential impacts of the increased loads, especially for the Quezon City government, when because they are already targeting to infuse electric vehicle for public consumption. So in time when this public electric vehicle already gained acceptance and increase in volume, managing load will become increasingly important to ensure that the local grids can handle the added demand of electricity. So in terms of training, they could also discuss the elements of sustainability. How are they going to ensure the sustainability of these projects? Like, I think one component that missing on their discussion is who will be handling the management, the operation and maintenance when these charging stations have already been put up in their localities. And what is your business model when to sustain the operation and maintenance of this infrastructure? Will the local government handle the operation and maintenance, or are they going to charge the public users once they use up these infrastructures? So I think those are the questions that could further, strengthen the project proposals and request our funder, our financial facility to provide finances for these proposals. Well, in terms of policy, especially if our local government would already venture into diffusing the use of EV vehicle for public consumption, I think they can also look into some push and pull incentives that could encourage the use of electric vehicles or discourage the use of other vehicles that uses a more dirtier types of fuels. Like for instance, there are already some cities and municipalities around the world that use incentives like putting in preferential or prohibitional circulation and access schemes, like they are designating low or zero emission zone on the roads. So the electric vehicle would be more prioritized when on these road lanes. So they can also look into if they can provide some tax incentives or tax holidays for people who are purchasing or who will be using electric vehicles. And then at the other side of the coin, they can also look into some push incentives, like they can explore if the use of cap and trade, some carbon policy taxes for those who will be against those who are using the different vehicles using a dirtier.
Miss Mary Jane, you've been accidentally muted.
Yeah. Can you hear me now, Precious?
Yes.
Yeah. So relatedly, I would also like to promote a facility, an ICLAY facility. We called it Transformative Action Program Facility. It's a facility developed by ICLAY, which can help local government to develop sound proposal for this type of infrastructure projects. So I will be leaving my contacts to Climate Air Asia, to our organizer, for the local governments who would want to tap us in helping you or assisting you develop a robust proposal for this type of infrastructure projects. Thank you, Precious.
Thank you so much, Miss Mary Jane. So since our city presenters provided very specific details, thank you also for giving specific guidance based on those. So up next, may I now call on Professor Kobashi to provide his inputs to the three presentations also.
Okay, thank you very much. And can I share a slide?
Professor Kobashi, apologies as cannot hear you.
Oh, you cannot hear me? Just for a
Okay,
moment.
sorry.
Let me check.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
You can now you can hear. Okay. Okay. So can I share one slide? Okay. Just let me share a slide. So now can you share see the screen?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay, you know that now we are discussing about EV and the charging, and there is some special technology. Maybe you can learn the interesting. And my research is actually working on renewable energy photovoltaics, not especially rooftop photovoltaics integrated with electric vehicle. So now we need to decarbonize our cities' emission and the most the cost-effective way. And in this situation, that now actually no photovoltaics prices are declining very rapidly. Last 10 years, maybe the price become half, and it is expected the price of photovoltaic solar panel price going to decline for the next 10 years. Not only Japan or the US, or it's globally happening. The prices of this solar power is declining very fast. And at the same time, the price of battery and EV is declining very rapidly. So, the last 10 years, the price of batteries become very, very cheap, like 70–80% less than 10 years ago. And now EV's price also, because EV has a very big battery, the price of EV is very rapidly declining. Now this one is showing you battery electric vehicle price from 2020 to 2030. In Europe, it's going to decline less than half in 10 years. And ICE is an internal combustion engine, so like gasoline vehicle, the price become a little bit higher because tighter and tighter regulation. So we are expecting battery electric vehicle, so EV will become very increasingly cheaper. So maybe if you are working on this air pollution for the last 10 years, and if you felt this is very difficult issue to solve, but by now increasingly this EV and solar panel prices are cheaper than the using existing fossil fuel systems, so that if you push it wisely, it can get into society and going to solve many of the problems in your city for next 10–20 years. And of course, cutting CO2 emission. So that that you have to collect information and think about how to push this EV or the solar technology into your city. And charging is very important, and you have to be very strategic. But I would like to introduce you some new technology. In Japan, the system is already commercialized, and many people already knows, and more than 10,000 units are being introduced in houses in Japan. And this one, if you put solar panel on the roof, and the solar is generating electricity only daytime, and of course you can put battery, but battery is expensive. So that if you can utilize EV battery to charge it, you can basically charge very cheap electricity to your vehicle, but also at the nighttime, you can discharge electricity from EV to home. And basically, because this technology becoming cheaper and cheaper, electricity between these technology becoming cheaper and cheaper. So basically, by especially like individual homes, most of the electricity, like 90% or 95% of electricity can be produced by this system for homes, and even more energies generated in these solar panels. So that basically you can supply electricity not only for your home, but to the city. So this kind of technology is being developed, and it's now available in Japan, and Europe and the US also considering to utilize the EV. So that this kind of technology, maybe if you'd like, maybe we can collaborate to try in your home, and some demonstration project can be made. Technology itself is very developed in Japan already. So maybe at the beginning, you can introduce this technology in your country or in your city, and maybe local companies maybe to try to make the similar systems. So this kind, I just would like to know, let you know, this kind of technology is available, and in the future, now internet and the smartphone and this kind of ICT technology is rapidly developing, so that this kind of system will control charging, discharging, and this rooftop electricities, and so that this kind of a system can behave like a power plant. So it's called virtual power plant. So basically, this kind of systems provide electricity to your city. So probably you should start thinking about start incorporating this rooftop PV systems and EV and combined and utilize to provide very affordable electricity and dispatchable electricity to the city. And this kind of things is so individually introducing EV, and also individually introducing rooftop PV is important. Probably already you are doing already in your city, but no, you can start thinking about introducing like V2H system to your city. And that actually many Japanese city government and central government is doing it. They do promoting rooftop PV, but also EV, but also this V2H system to be introduced. And that can basically, that drastically may change the energy system in your city. And if you'd like to know more about it, I can provide you more information. And and also as I showed you earlier in the beginning, these two technology costs is declining fast, and it will continue declining. So please try to make a good policies to help to push into your city, because by introducing this technology, you can save energy costs rapidly, and of course air pollution. So that this kind of technology will make condition very different from the past 10 years or 20 years. If you are feeling very difficult to do so, but it will be different for the next 10 years. That is my input. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Kobashi, for your presentation. And I think what you've shared is important, especially for once electric vehicles are scaled up and are available or are promoted for public consumption. And also given what Ms. Mary Jane earlier also mentioned about the need for grids to support the demand, the electric demands once charging stations are increased. So this can be also one of the solutions aside from partnering or coordinating closely, of course, with the electric providers.
Yeah,
so
and
for
also,
our
in addition, not only controlling the demand, EV can basically supply electricity to home, to the city. So that basically EV can be utilized, charge electricity from PV, renewable energy, and back to the city. So no, that kind of process will be very important to enhance introduction of renewable energy. So that try to start thinking about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Professor. So now, may I call on Dr. Eric Zusman. Eric, if you can provide your comments to the presentations, and as you're the final speaker, if you would also like to kind of wrap up the discussion for this session, that would be most welcome.
Okay, thank you so much, Precious, and Mary Jane, Takuro. Really great comments, and thanks especially to the cities. I mean, my natural inclination is I'm sort of teacher. I was raised from educators, and when we come home for dinner at night, when I was a kid, we basically always say, like, how was your day at school? So my natural inclination is to give some grade to everybody's presentation, and I think right now we have A-level presentations from all three cities, so it was excellent. But the next step is to take it to A+, so we can secure the resources. And yeah, also Takuro also agrees with me. He says you get an A as well. He's also a teacher. So how do we get to A+? And so here's some suggestions on the next step, right? First of all, I think you guys did an excellent job of highlighting the needs and some of your experiences and why you need these technologies, whether it be the EV charging stations and then some of the research needs that would support this. So I think that part is already quite excellent. I think you might be able to elaborate upon this a little bit by pulling on some of the insights from both Takuro and Mary Jane, which really underline that for the EV side of things, that this is a trend where we see, growing emphasis on electrifying our transportation network, and that by doing this, you're going to be able to, by setting up the charging stations and mainstreaming the EV, you're going to be able to reduce the costs in your city and make your city a front runner. Similarly, for the colleagues from Bogor, you can also highlight, more broadly for this air quality monitoring, that this is a big trend. Using this low-cost sensor is becoming more mainstream. And also for colleagues from Bogor, you need these sensors to protect the health, to achieve SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and also to achieve there's new WHO guidelines on air quality. And basically it says, even at the very low level of air pollution, we can still have bad impacts on health. So you want to show even bigger picture of why you need these things. Because of course it's very important, that's important for people in your city, but it's also the funding agency will think about also bigger picture. Do these people talk in language of SDG? Do these people talk in language of falling costs and bigger international trend? Do these people talk in language of WHO standards? So we'll help you with that, but I think you can try to make that point more clear. This is the first one. And then second one is, we didn't ask you this question specifically, but I think one of our next steps is we need to work with you to help show the benefits. We call this the co-benefits, sometimes co-benefits of these different policies and interventions. And there's 2 points here. I mean, one is we want to highlight as many benefits as possible, development benefits. So for air quality, of course, there's the air quality benefits, but also the health benefits, also creation of jobs. Same thing for EV. We have some of those same benefits, including health, jobs, also mobility. And so trying to highlight the benefits as much as possible and the different types of benefits. And we can also link those to SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. So we try to highlight benefits. And then also remember when we heard from our different speakers, whether it be about JCM or JICA or ADB or Land Bank even, we want to highlight the how we can measure those benefits. And for the international folks, a lot of times the key benefit is going to be the climate benefit, but also air quality benefit too. So how can we measure, report, and verify, or call MRV, the different benefits? So we can try to work with you on that, but that's something else you want to add in, I think, to your proposal to make it even stronger. Then the third point I want to highlight, which was done nicely in the Bogor presentation, and I think we can also, it's implied in the PASIC presentation and also in the Quezon presentation, is let's try to bring in some more visuals of how the different partners and organizations work with each other. So you can use some organizational chart or some diagram to show the different types of relationships between the different stakeholders and how we can strengthen those relationships. That's going to be really important to the scaling up process and getting the different types of innovation and bigger actions moving forward. So let's try to put in some organizational charts to show how these different stakeholders are working with each other. I think it's implied in some of the presentations that it's not there yet, but we can bring it in. I think that will make things stronger. And then the last point I would like to highlight is I just think this is very critical that's coming out of this is, you know, when I was thinking about the grade I give to the different cities and I say, okay, A, and how to get to A+, is I think it's really amazing that the 3 cities, you know, here and even more cities in the Clean Air Asia Network and part of this IBAQ, there's really good opportunities from learning from each other here. So for instance, you know, I know that Bogor presented on their air quality monitoring, but I know they also have an interest in EV. And then I saw the PASIG presentation with the very nice study of the usage demand side of the EV. So, I mean, of course, we need to talk to our own funding agencies, but, you know, maybe with, you know, help from eClay and through TAP or through the Ministry of Environment in Japan, you know, we could set up some learning platform where you can exchange, you know, how did you do this study, feasibility study on the EV, you know, between Pasig and Quezon and Bogor, and maybe 1 or 2 other cities, something like that. And similarly, on the air quality side, I think there's also a need for the air quality monitoring. So how did you do that? And, you know, notice that Bogor says we need to develop a SOP, standard operating procedure, for how to run the air quality. So how do we do that in, you know, Philippines? How can we do that in Indonesia? Where can we don't want to, it doesn't have to be copied exactly, but what are some of the key elements that can be tailored to the needs of the Bogor and whatnot? So I would like to suggest for all of us here, you know, to use this as a one stop in our learning process, our co-innovation process. But it's really about exchanging that knowledge on the air quality monitoring, on the EV, and then maybe also on we didn't talk so much about the solar for buildings. As you know, Takoro mentioned, this solar energy is, and it was implied, I'm sorry, I take that back. In Quezon presentation, PASIC presentation, it was also suggested we need the solar for the EV charging. But, you know, maybe also bringing that second complementary technology in, you know, how can we exchange experiences on those issues to really help build up this ecosystem? So I guess my last suggestion is let's use this as the first stop in our meeting, but let's continue this next year where we further develop the presentation, make it into full-fledged funding proposal, and show, you know, possibly some, it could be even 3-city, 4-city funding proposal where there's learning across the cities, something like that. Maybe that's too ambitious. I get too excited sometimes, but that's what happens when I wear my red sweatshirt. Yeah. Okay, so I stop right there, but those are some suggestions. I think it's really, you guys are really amazing because you took this idea of co-innovation and you really brought it to life, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Eric. And of course, thank you to our three speakers and also our city presenters. Yes, it is very great to see co-innovation being applied. And as mentioned by Eric, the work does not stop here. And I'm very excited also to continue working with you so we can turn these presentations into proposals. So now I think that ends our session. I will turn the floor over back to Dana.
Okay, thank you, Precious, for facilitating the session 5 discussions. So we are now approaching the end of our workshop. At this point, I would like to request everyone if they could turn on their cameras or videos for our group photo. Okay, so we have 2 panels, so requesting my colleagues to take a screenshot of the first panel and second panel of the Zoom participants. So let's just wait for those who want to join the group photo to turn on their videos. Okay. So it's nice to see everyone before we end the workshop. Okay, so I think those who want to join the photo have their videos already on. So I'll just count for everyone. So 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, one more. So let me just, okay, one more. So 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, so next, I'm also requesting our participants to complete the workshop evaluation form. The link will be sent via the chat box. A QR code is also shown on the screen, and scanning the QR code will also lead you to the same form. Okay, so e-certificates of attendance or participation will be provided to those who completed the meeting evaluation, and access to the workshop recording and materials that were presented over the 2 days will be provided through a post-event email. So let us take a few minutes to answer the workshop evaluation form. Okay, please let us know if you have any problems in accessing the form. Faye has already shared the link via chat, so you could just click that and answer it for just a few minutes. So just allowing more time for our participants to complete the form. So we're allowing a few more minutes. So 3 minutes. The time now is 3 o'clock here in the Philippines. We'll head over to the closing by 3:03. Okay, so 1 more minute to finish answering the evaluation form. So again, in the same form, we have a question there, whether you would need the e-certificate and what would be the name that would be reflected on your certificate. So we encourage everyone to answer the workshop evaluation form. Okay, so that's 3 minutes already. So thank you for completing the forms and staying until the end of our workshop. So to formally close the workshop, may I call on again on Dr. Eric Zussman to share the next steps and his closing remarks. So Eric, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks so much, Dana. And once again, thanks, colleagues, for a tremendously enriching and fruitful discussion. I think the best types of workshops are when you learn more than you teach. I mean, when you understand better the situation of the people that you're working with and how we can work together to improve that situation. And I think we have achieved that over the past 2 days. And I really, have gained some tremendous insight into, how to work with and co-innovate with our colleagues from Pasig, Quezon, and Bogor, and other cities more generally. So I really appreciate you guys educating us and helping us learn from you. I think, like I implied in my previous comments, the next steps moving forward are hopefully, I cannot 100% guarantee, but hopefully we will be able to continue our work through IBAQ with the 3 cities that participated today to further develop these presentations into full-fledged funding proposals, and then work with the appropriate channels to locate resources to get the funding you need to move them forward. So I think that's part of our intended approach. But also I want to suggest, while we want to work with you that way, I think one of the nice things about this process is it works on both sides. And what I really noticed is the eagerness and the energy from our partners to, do the homework, set up the PPTs, make the contributions to show us, what your needs are and how we can work together. So I'd like to, call upon, especially our colleagues at Clean Air Asia, who have the strongest connections here, to continue to open those channels so that we develop these funding proposals that you guys on the city side are putting in the work, and you're owning the process. I think that's going to be absolutely critical to making sure that it's successful. We'll give you, our inputs and guidance, but you guys are really steering and moving things forward. So with that, I'd like to suggest our next steps are moving into, in Japan, we end our fiscal year in March, basically. So I always say next year, but when I say next year, I just really mean after March, April 2023. Moving into 2023, we look forward to working with you to take your presentations, put them into full-fledged funding proposals, discuss ways that the policy environment, the ecosystem can be further strengthened, and discuss ways that we can use this sort of exchange of knowledge between the different cities to make all of the cities mutually, to better the situation for all of the cities that are participating. So our next steps are, that funding proposal, and then using this as a platform for exchanging experiences, and get some resources to, as I once heard from the governor of California once gave a talk in the climate change UNFCCC process. He said, just make it happen. So let's just make it happen together. And we look forward to working with you to make it happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. So we will be ending the meeting in 1 minute. So thank you again for your time, and everyone, enjoy your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you po.